It's a good day to brew, baby. What is up, YouTube? It's your boy Millsy. Back at the hometown commander, back for another episode of Millsy Brews, the show where I brew a version 1.0 deck list of the commander in front of us on my quest to brew a magic world. As always, the motto here is ABB, baby. Always be brewing, and that's what we're looking to do today. The deck list is going to be down in the description for you below. So I'd really appreciate it if you get to interact with the video, like, comment, subscribe. Consider checking out the links in the description. Appreciate it. But today, we're going to take a look at Averna, the Chaos Bloom, a team religion that just got reprinted in Foundation's Jumpstart. And I'm glad it did, because it's been one that's been on my list for a while, but it kept getting delayed back, and Foundation's Jumpstart bailed me out. A 4/2 elemental shaman that says, as you cascade, you can put a land from among the cards exiled onto the battlefield tapped. I think this is a really fun ability, because when you're cascading, right, you're trying to get another spell, and a lot of times you just end up, sometimes you flip up lands and then they just go back to the bottom. What I like about this is now you're ramping when you cascade, right, as long as you're revealing enough cards. And we can really take advantage of this by potentially cascading multiple times a turn and maybe hitting multiple lands that way. Because Averna is going to put lands in from cascading, we're going to play landfall to some degree. We're going to potentially have multiple land drops a turn, so we want to take advantage of it. Because all of our cascaded spells are being cast from exile, we're going to have some sort of exile matters in the deck as well, right? There's a lot of legends, especially in these colors, that we can use for that. And then my thought was, we're putting all these lands in. How do we take that strategy and how do we make it better? And Foundations bailed me out in that scenario too, because they reprinted Maze's End and a lot of the gates. And I thought gates are a great way to do it. There's enough in these three colors that we can really take advantage of them. Remember that it's our choice of land, so we can just pick anything we want from among them, meaning we can pick a gate, and remember Maze's End it also helps us search for gates and gives us another alternate win con for the deck as we kind of maneuver ourselves through this line of value that we can get. Well, let's start with Cascade, because I think that's where this deck is going to shine. Cascade is a mechanic that says whenever you cast this spell, you exile cards from the top of your library until you exile a non-land card that costs less mana. You can cast it without paying its mana cost, put the exiled cards on the bottom of your library in any order. You can choose not to cast the spell that you cascaded into, but if you do, it's just going to go on the bottom. This is different from Discover from Lost Caverns, where you got to put it in your hand. Cascade, it's your choice. You either cast for free, or you put it on the bottom with the rest of the cards. And so there's a lot of cards in this deck that we're playing because they have Cascade. Sometimes they're a little bit more expensive than they should be, but because they have Cascade, we kind of get extra spells right on top of it. Annoyed Altasar is a 7 mana 6/5 reach trample. Nothing sexy for 7 mana, but because it has Cascade, that means that you could potentially get an even better spell with less mana. I think one of my favorite Cascade spells, and ones that I've loved in plenty of other decks, is Apex Devastator. A big 10 mana 10/10 with quadruple Cascade. A way to really just take advantage of a lot of value and a lot of spells. There hasn't been a time that I've cast an Apex Devastator that I haven't seen so much fun come off of it and seeing what it's going to get into. Aurora Phoenix is a flying 5/3 for 6 with Cascade, and then whenever you cast a spell with Cascade, you can return Aurora Phoenix from your graveyard back to your hand. So this is a nice way to potentially have a Cascade outlet every turn, or if it ever gets destroyed, bring it back to your hand and play it again. Boarding Party is another one of those creatures that is not very good for its cost, but the fact that it has Cascade means that we get to open up all these other chances. A 6 mana 6/3 with haste. Ethereum Horn Sorcerer is a really interesting one. It's a 6 mana 3/6 with Cascade. So 6 is a good start in our deck to Cascade from, because there's a lot of things in our deck that are 6 or that are 5 or less. But it has the fun ability to pay 3 to return it back to your hand. That's really nice, because then we can get reoccurring Cascade, right, as we're doing this multiple times. I think that's the one part where, if we can do it, it would make the deck even better, right? Is to keep cascading every turn if possible, to keep getting this value. Emoti there on the right is one of my favorite commanders I've ever built. It's a creature that gives all spells you cast with mana value 6 or greater Cascade. This can actually lead to double Cascade on spells like Ethereum Horn Sorcerer or Boarding Party beside it, just leading to more value. And Emoti's 5 mana, so it's easy to cascade into with some of the other things. But again, giving an extra amount of Cascade to things is just brutal, especially when most of our Cascade cells are really 6 or above in the deck. Maelstrom Wanderer, double Cascade, comes in and gives all our creatures haste. A great one, a great commander in its own right, but we're playing it here for the utility. Sakashima's Protege and Sweetglum Recluse, both 6-mana creatures with Flash and Cascade. When Sakashima's Protege comes in, it enters in as a copy of any permanent that entered the battlefield this turn. Remember, so we Cascade, right? We do the Cascade first. Sakashima's Protege could come in as something interesting, or it also could come in as a land. And then Sweetgum Recluse says it enters the battlefield and put 3+1/+1 counters on any number of target creatures that entered the battlefield this turn. So if we've cascaded off of Sweetglum and got a couple other creatures in, they all get counters, as well as Sweetglum will get the counters too, turning itself into a 3/6. So very interesting creature that can potentially help add to our board. But it's not just about creatures, it's about spells. Call Forth the Tempest is probably one of my favorite spells that's ever been printed with Cascade on it. I think my favorite's Apex Devastator because I'm a Stompy player at heart. But an 8-mana sorcery that cascades twice and deals damage to each creature your opponents control equal to the total mana value of other spells you cast this turn. A way to hopefully do at least 5 or 6 damage minimum to all of our opponent's creatures, if not more, and profit off all those Cascade triggers that we get. Into the Time Vortex is just a 5-mana spell with Cascade, and if we cast it from our hand, we get to exile it as it resolves in the beginning of our next upkeep. We get to play it again and Cascade again. Throes of Chaos, same thing, Cascade and Retrace. Now, Retrace says we can cast it from our graveyard by pitching a land in addition to its other costs, but again, a spell that's just going to Cascade and gives us an option to potentially use it again. Volcanic Torrent, 5-mana sorcery that deals X damage to each creature and planeswalker our opponents control, where X is the number of spells you've cast this turn. This may look odd, but remember that when you cast it, Volcanic Torrent's X is going to get resolved when it resolves, right? So if you cascade into a couple other spells, Torrent can be even better. It also is a nice way to kind of end off a big turn is to Torrent, right? For a little bit of a one-sided board wipe. Forceful Denial, a 5-mana counterspell, but it does have Cascade. So you can get some profit, right, off of that. I think objectively it's not the best counterspell we could play, but the point is that it has Cascade. We have all these other things that are going to care about, cascading and exiling and all that, and it still does its thing. Same thing with Natural Reclamation. Destroy target artifact or enchantment is about a 3-mana or 2-mana ability, but when it has Cascade, then it's good because it can cascade into so many things in our deck. Smoldering Stagecoach is in a vehicle that whenever it attacks, the next instant and sorcery you cast this turn each have Cascade. Note that's separate. The next instant and the next sorcery have Cascade. That's a huge thing, especially when you can pick what you want to pick. Bigger on the inside there from the Doctor Who set, and taps a artifact or a land, and it says that permanent has tap. Target player adds 2 mana of any one color, and the next spell they cast this turn has Cascade. This is great because you put this on a land, you get mana out of the ability, and you get Cascade out of the ability, and then you can put Cascade on anything, making any spell you cast next even better. And then Rain of Riches, when it comes in, you make 2 treasures, and the first spell you cast each turn that had mana from a treasure spent to cast, it has Cascade. And we have other ways in the deck to make treasures. It's not just Rain of Riches. So Rain of Riches can really help us out. This is probably the most cookie cutter section of the deck because you're going to see a lot of landfall things that you expect in a lot of other decks. AC is going to draw us cards whenever land comes in. Avenger of Zendikar is a little mini house of value on its own. Making a plant token when it comes in for each land you control. Whenever a land comes in, you get to grow each of your plants. Lotus Cobra, that classic landfall payoff. Whenever a land comes in, you get to add a mana of any color. This works great with the gates because if the gates are coming in tapped off of Averna's ability, we still get to net mana from them coming in. We're playing that new Mossborn Hydra. We love it. Comes in with a counter. Whenever a land comes in, double the counters. And it has trample. Could really grow over the course of a turn. Omnath, Locust Arroyo, probably one of my favorite landfall commanders I've ever played. Getting a lot of popularity on Arena right now. But whenever it enters, it deals damage to a target. Any target equals the number of elementals you control. And then whenever a land comes in, you put a counter on an elemental you control. And if you have 8 or more lands, you draw a card. So you can grow Omnath or other elementals. Remember that Averna is an elemental as well. And potentially draw you cards. So Omnath kind of scales as the game goes up. Phylath, very similar to Avenger of Zendikar. Instead, it makes a plant for each basic land you control. And then whenever a land comes in, you put 4 counters on a plant of your choice. So it doesn't grow the whole board like AOZ. It just grows 1 plant, which is so very useful when you can make those plants into threats. Rampaging Balos and Scooty both make tokens whenever a land comes in. Remember that Scootsworn has that ability once you have 6 lands to start making copies of itself and just massively multiplying. Tadiova, just like AC, is going to draw us a card whenever a land comes in, but it also gains us a life, so not a bad ability to take advantage of. Tireless Provisioner makes us a food or a treasure whenever a land comes in. And remember, the treasure can be used for mana or things like Rain Riches, right? Food can be used for life, so there's some good options. Things like Roaring Earth exist. We're playing a couple other of them in the deck as well. Whenever a land comes in, putting a counter on a creature or vehicle you control. So a way to grow our board, right, is these lands come in. And then Zendikar's Whirl, making a token whenever a land comes in. So you can see we want to take advantage of these lands coming in because it's kind of the whole point, right? We want to be cascading because cascading is such a good mechanic, but we're also getting lands, so we need to pay off the lands that are coming in. But all right, cascade, right? When you cascade, you exile until you hit that card, and you cast that card from exile. So there's a way to take advantage of casting things from exile. Probably the most popular one I think most people are going to think of for commanders, either Lelia or Faldorn. Faldorn is a commander that was in its own precon, but it says whenever you cast a spell from exile or a land enters the battlefield under your control from exile, which, ding, 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 is what's going to happen with Averna's ability. You're going to make a wolf, and then you can pitch a card to exile the top card of your library and play it this turn. Araxa from the Doctor Who decks just makes you a 2/2 alien warrior whenever you cast a spell from anywhere other than your hand. Lelia is going to grow herself whenever one or more cards are put into exile from your library or your graveyard. Now, the really fun thing about Cascade that you need to remember is you exile cards one at a time until you hit it. Meaning that for every individual card you exile when you Cascade, you're going to grow Lelia. I think that's why Lelia works so well in this deck, is it's going to just grow immediately and go really fast. When Lelia attacks, you can exile the top card of your library and you can play it this turn. But that bottom ability is just going to make Lelia grow and become a real threat. Mizzix from Jumpstart 2022 feels like an interesting one here. Whenever we cast a spell from anywhere other than our hand, we can pay 1 and a blue or a red. If we do, we get to copy it, choose new target for the copy. If the copy is a permanent, it gets haste and sacrifice this permanent at the beginning of the end steps. We kind of get that one-turn copy of it. But again, casting some spells might be really good depending on what we get. The 13th Doctor, another commander of its own right, commander of a precon of its own right. I kind of love Averna because it feels like you can really just take advantage of other great commanders and kind of put them in the 99 and really have them shine. Whenever you cast a spell from anywhere other than your hand, you put a counter on target creature, not on 13th Doctor, just any creature. And it matters because her bottom ability says at the beginning of our end step, we untap each creature with a counter on it. This works so well with all those landfall triggers that put counters on things like Bristly Bill or the new Scythe Cat. Now, the new Scythe Cat is not in the deck because of the cost of the card, and we can talk about that on another time. But the point is, this really pairs so well with those landfall abilities that put counters on things. And then Lost in the Dam. Whenever a land enters the battlefield from anywhere other than your hand, or you cast a spell from anywhere other than your hand, make a 3/3 spawn. Remember, Averna's putting the land from exile onto the battlefield. Cascade is casting the spell from exile, meaning that Lost in the Damned is going to make you a ton of spawn tokens, and we want that so we can have that be a threat. But finishing off with our gates, there's a lot of ways we can care about gates. We'll talk about Maze's End on the next slide. But I want to show you, we have things like Circuitous Route, which can go get any 2 gates and put them on the battlefield tapped. Our Promise can go get any 2 lands of our choice and put it on the battlefield tapped. If we control deserts, we get zombies. We don't care about that text. Mainly, we can go get any 2 lands of our choice and put them on the battlefield. This is important because we can go get Maze's End, which we'll talk about in a second. Another way to go get Maze's End is something like Crop Rotation. Sack a land, and if you do, go search your library for a land and put it on the battlefield. Well, the land that we're talking about that's not a gate but cares about gates is Maze's End. This enters tapped. We can tap it for colors. We can pay 3 to tap it to return it to our hand, go get a gate, put it on the battlefield, and then shuffle. And if we have 10 or more gates, we win the game. Obviously, we have more than 10 gates in the deck so that we can fulfill Maze's End. But the point is, we're going to do a very good job at, if possible, fulfilling Maze's End without ever having to use its ability. And we will have to, but maybe we only have to use it a couple times as we're churning through our deck with Cascade and putting lands down. And then God Gate and Baldur's Gate are both of the gates from Baldur's Gate, Commander Legends Battle at Baldur's Gate, which added a bunch of new gates to the deck. So instead of just having our guild gates from Ravnica, now we have a bunch of these gates. Gone Gate says that gates we control enter untap, which is a great ability. And Gone Gate can tap for any color among any of our gates. And then Baldur's Gate is kind of like a Nykthos style effect, but just for gates. So it can add an X mana meaning one color where X is the number of gates, other gates you control. So a way to really take advantage of all the gates we have and tapping big mana for them. But I've said it before on the show, and I'll say it again. No deck's ever complete. This is my version 1.0 shot at Averna. Although I did cut my teeth on a deck like a Modi, I think there's a lot to learn with Averna because you're adding the landfall elements, you're adding a third color, and when you do that, you kind of interact with new things. And as far as my cards to consider in testing, I think what these really all three represent is, do we need more Cascade, and do we need more ways to play things from exile? I think the deck has plenty, but the question becomes, is it ever bad to have more? Things like Ingenuity, Engine, and Meteoric Mace are things that aren't bad cards on their own, but they're prohibitively more expensive because they have Cascade. Ingenuity is a 7-mana artifact with Cascade, Mace being 6. The point is, do we need more inherent Cascade on cards? And then Aminatu's Augury on the left is just another example of, do we need more ways to play things from exile to take advantage of these exile payoff style abilities? Again, I wouldn't want to have the deck without those payoffs because I think it's so easy to profit from things like Lost in the Damned because it's going to happen so often. But I think that if it was me personally playing Averna, I think I would slim a little bit more towards something like Landfall because I think it's just going to happen more often than you think it will. And there's so many great Landfall payoffs. I think Teamer's, in my opinion, one of the best 3-color combinations for Landfall with what you have access to. So personally, I'd probably push a teeny bit in more towards Landfall. But I love that you get these 3 overarching ideas for the deck: Cascade, Landfall, and Exile payoffs, and you get to kind of marry all 3 of them together in whatever combination you want. And I think that's where the deck would run in testing. But let's get into our playtest, the thing we love to do here on the channel and the thing that makes us who we are, and let's enjoy it. Keeping a 3-lander with Sulphur Falls, Thornspire Verge, and Talon Gates of Madara, a new gate from Modern Horizons 3. When it enters the battlefield, up to 1 target creature phases out. Tap it for colorless, pay 1 into it to get a mana of any color, or 4 mana into it to put it from your hand onto the battlefield. So not a bad ability and a way to do that. But we have a Garruk's Uprising, a little bit of ramp in Circuitous Route, Growth Spiral, a little bit of ramp, drawing us a card and putting a hand down, and a Modi. A Modi, to me, feels like a great alternate commander for this deck, just allowing us to get so much more Cascade into the deck. We draw a Heap Gate, one of those new gates from Baldur's Gate. Again, tap for colors, 1 into it to get a mana of any color, 1 into it to tap an untapped gate you control to make a treasure. So lots of options there. I mean, pretty obviously, we're going to have to take turn 1 off no matter what. And I think it makes the most sense to put the Sulphur Falls in tap, since it's going to basically come in tapped probably no matter what at this point. I kind of want to get a green source down to be able to play that Growth Spiral, but we kind of awkwardly are going to be able to not get one this turn. This needs a mountain to be able to get us a green. And Heap Gate and Talon can both get us a green. We just have to have another land to do it. So I think I would just play one of them and then, move towards here next turn. Here on turn 3, again, I love the world where I could even play Averna this turn, but I can't, right? I don't have my 3 colors. Even if I were to play, the other one of these 2 lands, we still wouldn't have it. So I want to try to get something going this turn. My thought is Growth Spiral, because if I hit something else, if I hit another better land, we can get in. But otherwise, we're ramping a land, and we get Cliff Gate. So Cliff Gate is one of 3 gates from Baldur's Gate we get to play that have a similar ability. So they tap for 1 color, and when they come in, we get our choice, and they tap for the other color. So we have blue and red no matter what. We have red no matter what. We don't have green. So I would say Cliff Gate on green. And now we've ramped this turn. We're set up for next turn, right, to keep ourselves going. And hopefully we can have some fun. So there's a couple ways we can look at this turn. I think my choice is Circuitous Route here, mainly because it keeps the gates game plan going, and it can make sure we get a little bit of our more colors in. We'd be going from 5 to 7 lands, meaning next turn we can really take advantage of some value right that way. So we want to ideally just go get 2 gates. I think it makes sense to go get something like Baldur's Gate or Gaunt Gate, something that's going to be able to get us a bunch of value. But I think we also want to prioritize getting some of the regular gates as well, because they do well on mana. So I think Gaunt Gate is good because it can tap for anything one of our other gates can make, which is red and green. So I think blue and green might not be a bad idea. We play the Talon, so because they come in at the same time, but they come in tap no matter what, that's right. So just 1 mana left this turn, but that's okay. Again, we're setting up. The point is now we're at 7 mana. If we draw a land, we'll be at 8. I think it makes sense to maybe go something like Averna and a Modi next turn, just to really start growing and still growing, work our way up towards something like Apex Devastator. Here on turn 5, we don't see that last mana, but that's okay. 7 mana is still a lot. I like the idea of something like Escape to the Wilds. Could potentially get us some extra value from being able to play some extra lands. I guess there is the world where we exile the top 5 and don't hit enough lands, but I'm not as worried about that. I guess last turn, there would still be a turn. I guess there's still a world where we could start making treasures with Heapgate if we need to. I think I'd kind of like to try the Escape to the Wilds here. We get to exile the top 5. And we get to play an additional land this turn. And so all these cards we can play to the end of our next turn. So we basically have 2 turns, this turn and next turn, to do it. So we've got 2 mana left. We've got lands, though, so we could think about going with something like Lotus Cobra to potentially take advantage of the lands, the mana that we do have that just got used up, or the mana that we would have access to. Or we could play Averna. Right, because these don't have to come in tapped, right? So I think I would just go 1 and then 2 and play Averna. Get ourselves set up for next turn, where we can start cascading. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. I guess we should have thought about Path of Ancestry instead, right? Because then we could literally Baldur's Gate into Apex Devastator and have a grand old time. Or we could try to get something like, you know, a Modi down and try to prepare for another turn. But I like this, because now we go into our next turn. We can play that from exile, right? The bad part about the Sorcerer being in exile, it says the first spell you cast from exile each turn has Cascade. And because we're casting Wild Magic Sorcerer from exile, right, it would take away that as an option. 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. I can play 2 lands, so I could ideally Lotus Cobra, Forest to add a land, Baldur's Gate to add a mana, so netting 2 mana. Right now we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 other gates. So if we put them into Baldur's Gate, that's 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15. So we can actually go even deeper, right? So my thought here is a Modi plus Apex Devastator. Apex Devastator is going to cascade 5 times because of a Modi. We're going to strand these 2, but I think it's okay, because I doubt there's a world where we don't hit just an absolute ton of value off of Apex Devastator. I will do it for the purposes of just showing what it would look like. But again, I think it's going to be absolutely brutal. So we're cascading for 10 5 times. So we hit base within here. Remember that we get this command tower because of Averna. We have 1 mana with Lotus Cobra, and then we have our choice of Beast Within. I'm sure there's something that we can Beast Within. Here we go. Number 2, we get a Rhythm of the Wild. Now remember, this is all before Apex Devastator hits the battlefield. Ooh, we got another land, another mana from that. Cascade 3, we cascade into Aurora Phoenix, which has Cascade. So we're going to actually cascade again from the Aurora Phoenix into a Chaos Warp. We get this land for free, right? So now we're just 3 mana up this turn on Lotus Cobra. I'm honestly half thinking about Chaos Warping myself here. Just take a basic land and just try to see if we can hit something fun. But if our opponents have something key we need to get rid of, we can do that. Now Aurora Phoenix hits the battlefield. It gets the Rhythm of the Wild trigger. We'll give it haste, I guess. Cascade number 4, we get into Annoyed Altasar. I actually apologize. We would cascade again off of Aurora Phoenix because of Modi. So we need to do this again until we hit a relevant thing, which is Roaring Earth. Let's go back on the bottom. Now Aurora Phoenix hits the battlefield. Now we do Cascade number 4 off Apex Altasar. and we get a Ethereum Horn Sorcerer, we'll put that Seagate in. So now we're just literally any way from finding Maze's End into just winning the game, potentially. The Sorcerer has Cascade. It gets Cascade again because of a Modin. You can just start to see where this train... I'll stop here because I think we've shown enough of it so far, but you can see where this train's just going to go off on Cascading, and that's why Devastator can be such fun. Here we're keeping a 4-lander, all of our colors, which is great. Bloodbraid Elf, which has Cascade, and Haste, Wild Magic Sorcerer, which we saw last time, and that Reign of the Riches, so I like this one. Remember that we can't put down Gateway Plaza turn 1 because it sacrifices unless we pay 1. So I think I like the idea of just getting the Ketria Triome in turn 1. Turn 2 we see a Guildgate. We'll just play the Soul Ring and then the Gateway Plaza. Just get it in, pay the 1. I like this because now this taps for the colors, so now we have another, 3-color land in our deck. Here on turn 3, we see a Tali. It doesn't have Cascade, but it has a way when it comes in to get something off everybody's library. I think we just go Averna. My thought was Bloodbraid Elf, but I'd rather, get some value off the Cascade, right? If I can. Turn 4 here, I guess we'll get the tap land in. I'm trying to think. I could Reign of Riches, but I don't know if it's what makes the most sense. I was thinking of Reign of Riches and just net the treasures for next turn. Now we have a world where we can start giving other things Cascade that don't have it next turn. This actually does lead us into a Natali next turn if we want to. But my point here is this just sets up extra Cascade for more of our things to have. So as we get into our next here on turn 5, we have Phylath, which we could Cascade from. Remember, the lands come in before the Cascade, so we might have a chance to get not as many plants off of that one. I kind of like the idea of trying to do one of the Bloodbraids this turn, where they're either Elf or Challenger, just to get an extra Cascade. But my thought is if I go Wild Magic Sorcerer first, I can give the first thing I hit from off the Cascade, which could be fun, right? It will price me out of Bloodbraid Challenger though, so I guess there's that option. We could Atali, which might be pretty fun, right? But I'm kind of thinking just doing the Challenger. Pay the treasure and give it doubled Cascade. So let's see. We need something 5 or less. We hit Rashmi. Rashmi is a great option. The first spell we cast each turn, we reveal the top card of our library, and we can cast it without paying its mana cost. If its spell if it's a spell with lesser mana value than the one we just casted, if not, we put it into our hand, and we get the Path of Ancestry off of the Averna, and then we'll keep going. We gotta hit 4 or less. We see the Stagecoach, and this is great because we just got Maze's End, or we got Baldur's Gate, but I think Maze's End makes the most sense since that's the thing our deck's trying to do, right? Now, the Stagecoach is pretty fun because remember that can start giving Cascade to our spells. We don't really have any in our hand right now, but we could get there. And remember that if we do this before we do Rashmi, Rashmi could reveal something right and give more Cascade. You could start to see where this mess can just become of things you can give Cascade and how you can work it. So here on turn 6, 8 mana, 9 if I play the Forest, but I think I just want to cast this AC with a treasure, mainly just because then I can start drawing cards out off the Cascade. But it's our first spell each turn, so we reveal the top, and I'm going to do this first before I do the Cascade. If it's spell with mana value less, it's not, it's a land, so it's just going to go into our hand. But all right, now we're going to Cascade for 6. Remember, no doubled Cascade, just regular Cascade for 6. And we see Scoot Swarm. Okay, so kind of unfortunate we didn't end up hitting a land, but that's okay because now we can Cliffgate, get a insect off of the Scoot Swarm, and draw ourselves a card. And now we have, 2 more mana this turn to use. We could crew the Stagecoach if we want to. I guess that turn kind of, fizzled itself, but let's see, 1, 2, 3, 5, 6. I don't have enough to do the Maze's End. But I think that's okay. We still ended the turn where we're getting some nice draw. Oh, sorry, we can play an additional land with AC. That's what I thought. Play another land, get another insect, draw a card, and that should mean we have enough to Farseek. Sorry, that wouldn't have made insects. That actually would have made copies of Scoot Swarm. So we would be at 4 here. But play the Forest, or play the Farseek. We'll just go get something that has dual typing. It doesn't really matter because we kind of got all the stuff we really want. We'll go get, I guess, get something like Cinderglade, make a bunch more Scoot Swarms, draw a card off AC. And I mean, now we're in great shape, right? Now we got this landfall engine going. We have more than enough mana for things like Atali next turn. We can get the Maze's End starting. Again, I love this place now because we have so many threats our opponents have to deal with. But let's get into playtest number 3. Keeping a 3-lander with Tadiova, 13th Doctor, Surrak Dragonclaw, and Aroxa. So lots of payoffs, not as much Cascade in our hand, but we'll work our way into it. Turn 1, we'll get the Ketria Triome tapped. And we see Rattleclaw Mystic, a way to tap for some mana, so we like it. Ooh. We see Soul Ring, huh? Who doesn't love a good Soul Ring? So we'll go Soul Ring into Rattleclaw. Just get ourselves, right, access to some more mana. Here we have 1, 2, 3, 4 mana, or 5 mana, sorry. I kind of like the idea of, because this Cliffgate has to come in tapped, I kind of like the idea of the bigger on the inside. Because then we can start giving more things Cascade next turn, right? We'll put that on the command tower. Move into our next turn. If I do Averna here, I have 4 mana. So I'm thinking we Averna. And then 4 mana into this Aroxa with Cascade. So we'll see what we can get ourselves into. We might go pretty deep. We see Lost in the Dam, which is great because we saw Maze's End, right? So we can get that party going. We're going to cast the Lost in the Damned, and then there's the Aroxa. So now this Lost in the Dam, right, is going to start printing spawn tokens as we get ourselves going. But here on our next turn, the reason I like this bigger on the inside so much is this is guaranteeing us at least 1 Cascade each turn. 3, 4... 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 mana, and we can start doing the Maze's End. So if we 1, 2, 3, so we have 5 mana if we want to start doing the Maze's End every turn. My thought is either Surrak Dragonclaw or Tadiova. Tadiova actually might not be a bad idea to start drawing us some cards. So play the Tadiova with Cascade. That'll, ooh, lots of land options to a rampant growth. Well, that's not bad. We'll take the Heap Gate. That's going to make us a spawn, right? We get to cast the... we get to play the Rampant Growth, right? Which is going to make us a spawn because we're casting a spell from anywhere other than our hand. Rampant Growth can go get us... Just go get something like a forest. That is a land entering from anywhere other than our hand, so that's a spawn. Tadiova comes in, which was originally a spell we... sorry, that was a spell we cast from our hand, so that's not going to get us one. But now Tadiova comes in, and then we Maze's End, right, to return it to our hand to go get a gate, right, because that's what we said we wanted to do. We'll go get Baldur's Gate, put it in. Draw a card off of Tadiova, get a spawn off of Lost in the Damned. And I think this is where this engine is just going to start working itself together. We can, unfortunately, the Maze's End comes in tapped every turn. So it actually might have made more sense now that I think about it to go get the gate. The gates, well, no, because Maze's End isn't a gate. I think Gone Gate's still probably the better choice so that our gates start coming in untapped. That drew us a card, and now I think we're just off the races. We're making a ton of spawns. Remember that Aroxa is going to be making alien warriors, so she would have made a warrior off of Rampant Growth. And so you can start to see where these cards are going to start giving us a token presence. We've got the land presence. I like this idea. I think you could start to see where the deck it's going to start functioning here. But let me know, what do you think of Averna down in the comment section below. I think it's a ton of fun. There'd be a ton of fun to take this and iterate it and make it what you want. And really to have fun. I'm not playing a lot of high-end splashy spells, but you could obviously play this with extra turns and some of that other big mana, spellsy type stuff. But let me know what you think of Averna down in the comment section below, and I will catch you guys.